I am the freak. I am the freak. Welcome to Frame Rate.
Deep cut on this one.
Oh, boy.
You know it's a good episode when we start with a movie that is no longer available anywhere unless you eBay like a used copy.
You can watch it on YouTube.
You can watch it on YouTube, yeah. But I mean, like, it has no support anymore.
Nope.
Opening track by Henry Rollins. Rest of the music by the Butthole Surfers. In honor of news that was just announced recently, which is that Bill and Ted 3 is a go.
Yeah.
We wanted to talk about my favorite movie of all time, which I credit with getting me into comedy writing. My favorite comedy movie.
Oh, wow.
Like, script, for sure.
I guess that makes sense.
It really
joke
taught me a
ratio.
lot.
Like, to me, it's like up there with Airplane.
Yeah, it's top secret. In terms of like joke density, it's like Top Secret, which is Zucker Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's my favorite of all of those. That kind of movie where you're like, buckle in because a lot of jokes are coming. This is the one that just gets me.
Right.
It's so 90s. I'm so 90s. We're talking about the movie Freaked, which is the only place outside the Bill and Ted verse that has Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves together.
Uncredited Keanu.
Yes. So Alex Winter directed it. So I get it and co-wrote the
co-wrote.
script. So you get the feeling it's an Alex
And
Winter
co-directed.
passion project.
Right.
But Keanu is in it. Maybe just because he's like, come on, buddy, help me out.
But he didn't even credit it. Like, I would understand, like, oh, so we can have the name to draw people in, but, like, he's not.
That's true.
Here's how obscure, and you can tell how well this podcast is going to do. Do you want to hazard a guess? This is 1993. Budget and box office. Anyone want to guess?
Ooh.
I'm bad with, like, inflation. Like, I'm bad with knowing how much
this
old
is
money
IMDb.
is today money.
Well, Michael Swaim. The other voice is Abe Epperson.
Hi, I'm Katie Willert.
With us is our guest, Katie
We just
Willert.
got
we
so
went right
excited.
into it.
Yeah.
Guess first, please.
Oh. Budget was, just because of the opening scene, $5 million.
Okay, closest without going over wins. Let's play those rules.
All right.
I'll say budget was... Wait, what year? 93?
93.
Oh, I think she's right. I'll say $5,001, Bob.
God damn
Ooh,
it.
dick move.
Dick move. It's 11 million.
Oh my God.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Box office?
Box office.
I'll go first this time, so
Okay,
you have a little more. I'm gonna say $180,000.
$750,000.
She got it.
$30,000.
Wait, whoa! Wait, it made back $30,000.
$30,000 box office.
Oh shit!
Jesus
It
Christ.
flopped.
I
It's
thought
like
our
one of
movie lost money.
Oh my God.
11 million
Wow.
to 30,000.
Do you know what I loved about this movie is in the YouTube comments, how everybody was like, I'm going to say maybe 70% of the comments were, I thought I made this movie up. Because it's that thing of like, people watched it, but then it went away and everybody didn't talk about it. And I would imagine if you're like 7 and you see it and it's just this fever dream.
Just on TV or
There's
something?
a few
Do you
cartoon
know?
films. Yeah, totally. There's a few cartoon movies I thought I was imagining, and then I would see a clip 20 years later and be like, that was a real movie. Yeah.
Theodore Rex, it was one of those movies for me. It was Whoopi Goldberg and a dinosaur, and it was supposed to be a theatrical release,
you're
and
like,
then
how
they did
is
it
this
straight to
made?
video.
And you assumed that you made it up.
Yeah, I was like, well, you know that movie? And people are like, what? Because it didn't do well.
No,
so of course.
I think almost...
I was like that with World Trade Center.
So-
I was like, that didn't happen. People got really upset. I don't...
So if you've seen this movie, it was probably from a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Or on YouTube.
Yeah, or on YouTube right
Because
now.
that's the thing of like, if there is a video that, a movie that goes to video, and that's the only outlet, like, you'd wander the aisles of Blockbuster and be like, that cover looks interesting.
And yet at the same time, can I ask, is there a better Keanu Reeves performance, like, that shows more range? I think this is his best movie.
He's covered in fur, like you can't see his face.
Keanu Reeves
But
plays...
he's super charismatic, which is
Right.
not typical for him.
That's
plays
true. It's higher
yeah.
energy than I've seen, like more motivated.
I gotta inject context frequently because, as you said, this is going to be not viewed by most people, although hopefully they'll check out the YouTube link after this.
Yeah.
Just YouTube Freaked whole movie, and it's there. He plays Ortiz the dog-faced boy, so he's completely covered in fur and prosthetics. And yeah, like you said, he's very proud. He's the proud, charismatic leader of the rebelling freaks.
The self-appointed leader of the freaks, which they point out a couple times.
Right. Just before we move on, I want you to give like 1 or 2 sentences log line this movie.
Yeah, that's
just
fair,
because it's
'cause
such
it's
a
bonkers.
deep cut. Yeah.
Okay. Ricky Coogan, famous superstar douchebag from like very successful sitcoms in the past, whose career is failing. He's a total douchebag. He needs more money to keep his life going. He enters into this sort of deal with the devil with his giant evil conglomerate.
Everything except shoes.
They're called
EES.
EES. Oh, the everything except shoes people.
It reminds me of Hampton DeVille from the show Corporate.
Oh, yeah.
That corporation just makes everything.
I fucking love
B&O.
The Squid and the Whale has one of my favorite first lines ever. It's on black, and it's the kid saying, "It's you and mom versus me and dad." And it cuts to them playing tennis, but the movie becomes about a kid siding with each parent in the
Right.
divorce. And I think this first line is equally indicative of what the movie is going to be like. "We repeat, the flying gimp has been destroyed. You may return to your homes."
Yeah.
It's the first line of this movie. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So,
And then you get to Brooke Shields.
yeah. Okay, we'll get to the cast.
Get
Sorry.
finished.
But yeah, Ricky Coogan's our guy. That's Alex Winter. He agrees to become EES's spokesperson, or their man in Santa Flan, in the theoretical central, like American island nation of Santa Flan, named for the patron saint of creamy desserts, to promote Zygrot 24, which is a fertilizer that's supposed to revolutionize farming there. There's a bunch of protests because it turns out Zygrot 24 is super fucked up and destroys the environment.
You watch a man shrink in front of you.
Right.
Yeah.
He wants to basically just hook up with this protester woman they meet at the protest. So he and the shittiest best friend character in any movie ever, Ernie. He and his best friend and her all drive in a Jeep, find out who each other are fighting. The plot really has no inciting incident. It's funny.
She literally
See
just
a freak
sees
show.
this sign and goes,
A
ooh, freak show.
They go to the freak show. Surprise, surprise. It turns out Elijah C. Scuggs, played by Randy Quaid. His best role in any film as well, I think. Independence Day?
Yeah, that's actually honestly my opinion.
Randy Quaid is this crazy guy who uses Zygrot 24 and a machine he invented to turn people he kidnaps into freaks, and is in league with the EES people. He makes Ricky a freak. He locks him in with all the other freaks. The freaks become a family that bonds together, saves the day, and destroys EES and... what's his name?
Right.
Elijah
because
C. Scuggs.
EES wants to take the machine that he made and make people into mindless workers. That's why
He's
they are
just a
partnering
mad
with him.
scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Man.
That's that. It is hard to describe. It also starts with an amazing claymation credit sequence that
It's
completely
so
summarizes
long.
the movie. But I love how it's claymation of every element of the movie in plot order. Like, it shows all the freaks in a row, and then the machine, and then the two-headed chicken, and then the trolls fighting.
I was telling Mike and Abe earlier is that I watched this movie last night in my bed with my laptop on my chest, so it was pretty close to my face, and this claymation, it's like, it's loud music and this
Strobe light.
very stroby claymation, and I'm just like very overwhelmed, and it's a very long credit
It's
sequence.
the most 90s movie ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very MTV.
Mm-hmm.
That song, by the way,
Brilliant.
by Blind Idiot God. Speaking of the cast, for a movie that made $30,000 in the box office, it's crazy the cast that they somehow assembled for this.
They kill it.
Randy Quaid,
Mr. T.
Mr. T, Bobcat Goldthwait, Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, obviously.
Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields, Ray Baker, and then what was the one you just figured
John
out?
Hawkes.
John Hawks.
Yeah, I just didn't want to step on because it's your thunder.
I
to
didn't
play.
even realize.
Sorry, I
just
stole your
assumed-
thunder.
No, you're doing
No,
good.
it's fine. I totally assumed it wasn't the John Hawks from like Deadwood and Eastbound and Down.
Soul Star.
I thought
yeah.
it was just another guy named John Hawks.
Well, then the funniest thing
Looked
is
it
that
up. You can't tell because he's a cow.
yeah, he's literally has a cat. He's cowboy, and he's got a cow face on his face and udders, and like the bottom half of him is a man.
And he talks like
Like
Slim
this.
Pickens.
Yeah.
Who's an old TV cowboy.
There's one freak
Our
that-
audience probably doesn't know.
There's literally a freak who just is in the background of everything, just with flaming fart out of his
The
butt
eternal
the
flame.
entire time. Literally, it's just like a rocket, and he's just like smiling and just like in conversations with just like flames shooting out of his ass.
My favorite
continuously.
example is there's like a 1.5-minute dialogue shot between Ricky and another freak, and he's in the background, out of focus, farting flames continuously, like looking thoughtful, like
Yes!
stroking his
Every
chin.
time!
Like he's working on a plan or something.
What they do, because they call them, I know it's not the most PC term, but they call themselves
them
freaks.
Right.
Yeah. It's insane, their Rolodexing of like the type. Like if there's any reason to watch this movie and you haven't, go around the horn and just name some, like what the idea of one of the freaks are.
Well, and
because
also,
they're so funny.
to give you an idea of the tone of this movie, the way we're introduced to them is when he first meets all the freaks.
Oh God.
They have set up in their dilapidated shack a grid of 2x4s to play Hollywood squares themselves.
Yeah.
So Ortiz / Keanu Reeves literally gets to introduce you to the team basically, and it's like, let's meet everyone. There's Nosy the Nose Man.
And he's just
And
a
then
big
everybody
nose.
fucking hates Nosy, which is
Yeah.
the best.
Nosy is the Toby of The Office.
Yes.
Yeah, people
Everyone
hate him
hates
for no
it. It's
reason.
like, oh,
Rosie the Pinhead, which is the only one that's like standard.
But I also was
She's-
like, what is her gay? Like, I could. She just
Yeah,
is
what's her
like,
deal?
she screams.
I think it's
Screams,
supposed to mean that she's
sings.
simple.
She hammers nails through her hand
Her
at one
hand,
point.
yeah. It's just like it was the only one where I was like, oh, this doesn't seem fun like all the other ones seem
Sure.
fun. This was the
She's
one where I
used
was like,
sparingly.
The worm.
the worm.
protester, feminist, activist lady, and the ultra sexist, horrible best friend guy become Siamese twins because that's perfect.
And they punch
Before
each
ends
other
the
in the
By the
face
way-
a lot.
Really an admiration of like the physical design of the costume and how they made it work.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's easy to get away if it's a shot of just, it's kind of Velociraptor and Jurassic Park rules. If it's a close-up, it's a robot. So
Right.
they just seam them together, if that.
Right.
But there are many times in this movie where you see like a wide shot, somehow they did it.
Yeah, they're walking on two legs, and I did notice that. I was like, oh, did they do like a green screened middle leg or like a or whatever?
Number 3? I don't know.
I
if
think
Not
they
it's
did.
green
possible
screen, but, like,
it's
whatever the
one
replace-
actor with like a body that's a dummy.
And the
It
other
looked
actors
good.
just standing behind with their head
It just
moved
looked,
over.
or something like
I
that.
thought sometimes you could kind of tell that their arms are over each other's shoulders inside
Yes,
the
for
costume.
the- for
on
the two
close-ups,
shots,
but
yeah.
for
But I mean, in a way,
wides.
that made me respect them more because, again, like you said, Katie, their game is they're the two stooges.
Yeah.
Because that's why they became Siamese twins. They're diametrically opposed people, and
Right.
they just constantly physically and torture each other.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a wide shot where they're tap dancing and telling horrible jokes and beating each other up. And in a wide shot, she like conks him in the head and he gets dizzy and they both fall over, and one leg is clearly feminine and one leg is clearly masculine, and it's really impressive.
You're like, how
Like,
they do that.
that's-
I
Also,
think-
she fucks Dog Boy. Like,
yeah.
that part was, like, very uncomfortable to me
And-
because she's, like, playing with a bone with
Yeah.
him, and she's like,
Yeah.
do you mind? And I'm like, is he getting a boner? Like, what is the genital situation? Like, in my head, I was like,
'Cause-
what is the makeup? Because they're seamed
Right,
together. I'm like,
right.
they only have one bottom.
Well, he says at one point, you don't want to go off half-cocked, Coog. Trust me, it's not all it's cracked up to be. So I think it implies their genitals are split. It's half of a penis welded to half of a vagina. Yeah,
Good Lord.
that's what I'm imagining.
And for Ortiz, love wants what it wants.
yeah.
The heart wants what it wants. That's a song.
So
Deep
going.
Roy, who
I noticed that.
is very briefly used as one of the shrinking guys, but he, of course, has since become popular in
Yeah.
Willy Wonka and other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bearded lady is played by Mr.
Mr.
T.
T.
Sockhead is just
Oh, right, we're saying who they are. Okay, Bobcat Goldthwait is Sockhead, yeah.
yeah, but and it's just a
Hand and a
hand
sock
that
puppet.
has a sock puppet, and a really good joke in it is he loses a sock at the end of there's a hand under that sock.
Yeah,
And he's
during a
bleeding.
show,
Like they feel
the sock gets ripped off and he goes, that's just someone with a hand for a head, not a sock
and
puppet.
he's like mad at
This is a lie. And I love Randy Quaid quietly goes, ventriloquism is an admirable art in its own right.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the Rastafari, which is just so fucked.
Another line. We will get to a point where it's just line bingo, but I do love when Keanu comes up. He finally decides, or I'm sorry, Alex Winter, Coogan comes up to be a good guy and save his fellow hostage victims, and he goes, "You guys, you can't do this. What you don't know is about Elijah's giant Rasta eyeballs with machine guns."
Yeah. It's just so weird.
That's when their escape plan is to all dress as milkmen.
And they're like 12
There's
and then
12
13.
freaks. Well, there's 12 if you count the hammer. Because, see, Elijah uses his chemicals to morph you. And one of the saddest tales of all the freaks is there's a hammer that used to be a wrench. And it shows the flashback where he turned it into a hammer, and then everyone weeps.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out, in the milkman scene, Ortiz has the hammer with him, and it is also dressed in a tiny milkman's uniform.
It's such
And then
good jokes.
Ricky Coogan coincidentally came up with the same plan because it's a screwball comedy. So he's also a milkman in a milkman costume that fits his hideous hunch for some reason. And Ortiz says one of my favorite lines. He's like, "We can't all use the same plan. Elijah will catch on." And he goes, "No, he won't. A dozen milkmen is theoretically possible. 13 is insane." Yeah.
And when he's like looking outside, Randy Quaid is looking outside
Well, they start
the
having
window.
a knife fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Randy Quaid, seeing it, goes, "It's a lot of milkmen on one route. No wonder they fight."
The logic is sound.
Do you know what I found really interesting is okay, so Mr. Worm, right? Was that his name?
Yeah, we're not
Just
even done going
Worm.
through all of them. There's a guy called the Human Worm, yeah.
Who was
but they just call him Worm.
searching for this giant worm in the jungle, and then Randy Quaid was like, "Oh, it's here. You should see it." And then he turned him into a giant worm. What I thought was really funny is that character design standing right next to Bobcat Goldthwait, and all I could think of was in Hercules when Bobcat Goldthwait played Pain.
Right.
And then when they
Pain
become
and Havoc or whatever.
Pain and Panic.
Panic, yeah.
When we go, we're worms, and he transforms into a pink worm, and the two of them write his voice with that character. I was like, I made that connection in my head.
Yeah.
I'd sell my soul just to be able to wipe my own ass.
Oh boy.
I also want to point out that, especially for the budget we're talking about, it's such a labor of love because I think Dave Bell, if you're hearing this, you got to watch this because he always talks about
Oh yeah, Dave Bell
liking
would love
practicality over CG.
Right.
And for a movie in 1993 that feels indie and grungy and screwball comedy, were you not amazed by some of the the trolls look amazing, but at the end they become two giant trolls because they get covered in.
We say Coogan, and then his
we haven't even talked about
biggest fan, who is a redheaded child with giant ears and teeth, who they somehow have telepathy because he's
They're
his
soulmates.
soulmate.
Yeah.
And at one point, the kid is in the overhead compartment of the plane, and then gets sucked out of the plane,
That
and
is
then
amazing.
lands in the middle of a field.
Every time this comes up, I'm going to bring it up. Forgive me.
Next to the hay.
This movie invented so many joke structures that have been famously credited to The Simpsons by comedy nerds. That's one of the reasons I love it so much. And you just got to my first one of 6 is
Dropping
Simpsons has
out.
done this many times. You cut to Hans Moleman by a thing of Hummel figurines, and you assume the bowling ball is going to crash on the Hummel figurines, but it crushes him instead. This joke I like even better.
Right.
You cut to the hay pile. He lands next to it on the ground. He survived falling from a plane. He gets up and he goes, "Hey, I'm okay." Then his bag that fell with him hits him in the head. So it's an extra beat. Stewie Gluck. I also love when he's trying to lay low and it cuts to him standing on the street corner reading his article that got published. And he goes, "Oh boy, Freaky Deaky Ricky Coogan is a freak in Central America by Stewie Gluck. That's me!" And as he screams, "That's me," the EES henchmen are already picking him up and carrying him out of the scene.
Right.
And he's like, "I'm not Stewie Gluck." Yeah.
I do have to say, I really did appreciate the joke where he kept going to every newspaper to pitch it, and they kept throwing him out of the glass door. And then
the
finally,
last
when
beat.
the Wild World Weekly or whatever was took his thing, he's like, "I'll let myself out." And then he just leaps out of the glass door.
Yeah, again, it looked practical. and it looked like it was that kid, and it doesn't look like a dummy. So I'm like, they had a day.
A stunt.
It was a stunt coordinator.
But it was like
wearing a wig. Like that was one thing that when it landed, I went, that is a small adult human with a red curly wig on.
Okay.
It was a good wig, but it wasn't
I really
him.
think that kid who he again, like there's so many people in this that you wouldn't know if they've been in other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex Zuckerman. Amazing. Like, it's an over-the-top performance that is so pitch perfect. Like, he's putting out Jim Carrey levels of insanity.
Right.
When he's, but Ricky, I'm in love with you. And I just, for someone that young to be matching Jim Carrey or Robin Williams level insanity, I think is awesome.
What else has he been in? Do you know?
Yeah, do you have his page up?
Oh, I thought maybe you had his IMDb.
No, I just copied the name over.
You were saying the genitals bothered you. That I get.
I mean, it didn't bother me. I was just like, what is the reality of this being?
The one that really bothers me, and I don't like thinking about it, is that Cowboy's hands were humanoid hands instead of hooves, which I understand because they want him to interact with stuff in scenes. But did you notice when you glimpse his hands, his palms are like these weird, thick, hoovy, greasy palms. His hands are very disturbing looking.
Yeah. I did not notice that.
In the way that like a human-cow hybrid. God, I think the effects are so good. So who else is there? Nose of the Nose Man we mentioned. Mr. T is the bearded lady.
Frogman.
Okay, Frogman is just a man in a scuba suit.
Who's a Frenchman in a scuba suit.
But you don't realize that till 90% of the way through the movie. They ask Frogman something for the first time, and he answers in French. And you're like, oh, I didn't know he was French.
Which, like, okay, yes, French people eat frog legs. I understand. I understand the connection.
Oh, I didn't even get that. I thought it was just random.
No, it's that's racial term.
Yeah, frogs. Oops, bleep that. Alex Zuckerman, Ray Baker. We talked about John Hawkes.
Toad.
Mr. Toad.
Oh, yeah. He's the henchman for Randy Quaid.
Yeah.
Ends up... What does he stick his... Because he's a toad and he uses
Ernie
his tongue
says,
to
I
like...
used to blow up toads with firecrackers, pal, so that's his comeuppance.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of Toad, because this is when Toad eats an airplane and burps a propeller, which is a Looney Tunes joke. But when they're tunneling, I laughed out loud again watching it this morning. When they're tunneling... and they suddenly break through a wall, and there's an enchanted city.
Oh, yeah!
That looks like Oz. And Worm goes like, my God, the fabled lost city of Monte, whatever, like some made-up name. And then it changes like a slideshow. It goes
like
click,
one
click.
of those viewfinders that you would click
and they go, oh, Niagara Falls. And it changes again, and Ernie goes, Aunt Gertie and Uncle Sid. And it changes again, and he goes, oh, my bar mitzvah. And they start moving on down the tunnel. He's like, no way, you guys got to see my bar mitzvah slides.
Yeah.
Like, it was just randomly, there was a slideshow under the earth. Fucking love this
Everyone
movie.
just runs with it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about my favorite sequence, which is them remembering how they got formed into freaks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First off, Bobcat Goldthwait as the tourist who then turns into Sock.
I was a tourist looking for some fun. Elijah turned me into a freak. Sorry, I'm not much for stories. But it's a great 3D because later, Ricky Coogan, after he's earned their trust and respect, calls them all together and goes like, I have a plan that's going to save us. And Mr. Sock immediately leaps up and goes, it's the apocalypse! We're dead! Every man for himself! Sorry, I'm not much for timing. And then when he dies tragically at the end, and they pull his sock off and blood comes out of his hand mouth, he goes, I just want to tell you fellas, I'm sorry. I'm not much for dying.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
So good.
My favorite one in that is the Mr. T turning into the bearded lady, because it has my favorite line from Randy Quaid in it, which is he just shows up and
he's like a trucker.
Yeah, he's like a trucker, and he says he was very confused, and then Randy Quaid just like leans over and he's like, you know, you'd be better without a dick. And then Mr. T like fisticuffs,
Like he's gonna fight him, yeah.
like, and he's like, "Hey, you can keep their beard."
and then they hug.
They
embrace.
immediately.
And then he's like, and I really like, isn't the like the follow up like, and I really like being a woman or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like,
And now I know this is me. I am
I'm a
woman,
woman.
and I like me.
and I was like, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
Like,
Mr. T is the bearded lady, and he does no acting. He just plays Mr.
Yeah.
T in a dress with a giant
with
beard.
with
yeah.
a very nice lip shade on.
yeah,
Very nice lip color.
and
He does his like talent or whatever in the show is like doing someone's hair.
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
thought was really sweet.
and he's like,
like,
just have fun with it.
earnestly,
That's
yeah.
the important part.
I also just realized they do give a reason, technically. You're saying, why does his biggest fan have psychic connection with him? And Cowboy does explain it when he says, it's not that strange. Lots of us freaks got ESP, and Sockhead, he's got ESPN. And it pans down, and Sockhead is watching sports and predicting everything in the sport before it happens.
He also says that Nosy can smell the future.
Yeah. I also love, you're talking about, during the freak show, they each have a signature thing they do.
Yeah.
Nosy the Noseman's is he breakdances in a gorilla costume, which A, makes it so you can't see his
See his
giant
nose?
and B, his nose obviously physically wouldn't fit in the costume.
Yeah, it's
so
way
it's-
too big.
And he's also like just in the general tradition of like nothing goes right for this guy. He's like dancing and then the music starts to skip and he's like in a gorilla costume, like really angry about it.
And everyone like boos him.
Yeah.
Buzz immediately. It is like, there's no themes to get into. It's just a hidden gem. So I'm ready to like just say our favorite parts whenever you guys are, but I don't want to detract from actual
I
discussion.
started that train.
Good. I think that's where we're at with this.
Just like bits that are hilarious.
yeah.
I love the Bob Vila joke. The Bob Vila joke. The Bob Vila shows up at one point
Yeah.
because they have like there's an outhouse that like when Randy Quaid opens the door, it's like a TARDIS where it's like giant on the
30
inside.
times bigger, yeah.
And they make a joke of like, oh, I did it in one weekend with Bob Vila, and then Bob Vila shows up, and then I think he closes it. Randy Quaid leaves and closes the door, and he's like, man, that place really needs a shitter, and he's like, you can do it in one with my book, and he gives the book, and I was
Right.
like, this is such a 90s thing of like Bob Vila of all people showing up.
And then he beats him to death
yeah,
with
a
he
a
does.
hammer,
He
yeah.
does beat him with the hammer.
There's a couple of
his own hammer.
yeah.
really 90s jokes. One is the twins, the male-female twins, are fighting over deodorant. And she goes,
Oh, secret.
he goes, it's strong enough for a man. And she goes, but it's made
for a woman. And then
Fighting.
she knocks the deodorant into his mouth.
A great effect, too. It really looks like a giant thing went in his mouth. The other one that I was like, that doesn't scan for kids today, I bet, is when Ricky's trying to find a mode of escape. And he sees like a scooter, but it's busted. And then he gets to a bike and he goes, chain.
Yes!
And then he gets to a boat and he goes, no, the club.
And there's just a club.
This old rusted
That's right.
boat has the
That's
club
right.
on it. But also the boat wasn't near water.
No, it was on a trailer.
He just thought if he could get through the club, he'd be free.
Another one of my favorite jokes at the very beginning,
I think I know which one you're talking
which
about.
is the like another Simpsons joke, is that yes, he says like we've arrived in Southern America.
Here
or
we
something.
are in
In
Central
Santa
America.
Juan, yeah.
Central America, and then the plane explodes, and then it cuts to them and like, sure glad that wasn't our plane.
That was a very like airplane top secret
Yep.
Zucker Brothers joke for me. Like
Really? Because I think, or I had always thought, and I know a lot of comedy writers who feel this way, that the joke in The Simpsons, where she goes, Homer, you're driving too sleepy, you should pull over. And he goes, don't worry, Marge, I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all.
Okay.
Crashes, they're in the hotel window, and they say, glad that wasn't our car. That was like a revelation of joke structure to me.
right.
And I was so proud of this movie, which predates that episode, where I was like, they did it too.
Right. I don't think there's an actual example in. I haven't seen. I mean, Top Secret is for how this is Freaked is your movie that like really informed kind of your comedic sensibility
Voice,
in that
yeah.
way. Top Secret was that for me, but I haven't watched it in a couple years, so I couldn't tell you if there's
Sure,
like that
if
specific
that
joke.
format, yeah.
But that
It's a
to
good
me
format,
is like
yeah.
in line with like Zucker Brothers
Yeah.
movies.
We haven't actually mentioned that Brooke Shields forms the framing device, which is that Ricky Coogan is now on the Sky Daily talk show.
Time
Daily.
Daily.
Time Daily's a real person. Sky Daily talk show talking about his crazy
And
experience.
he's backlit, so
in
you
retrospect.
see this like
That's a good joke,
deformed
too.
figure. That reveal
It's hilarious.
made me go bah! Out loud, like so
Well,
loud.
yeah, explain it.
So essentially, you don't see Alex Winter's character, kind of reiterating what's happening. You just see he's backlit, and so you see like he's all deformed, and then you know that when you cut to the actual events of the movie, that he has this weird like shoulder, and half of his face is like a gargoyle face, and then at the very end, the light comes on and he's normal, but there was a cactus behind him, and that was what made him look, when he was backlit, deformed.
Great silhouette joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Brooke Shields also in the opening thing. I love the very first scene. She's like, "So you were flying there? Oh, what was the movie? I don't know. I think it was Return to the Blue Lagoon. Oh, I heard that sucks.
Yeah.
Which she famously flopped in. Yeah. So it's even got meta film jokes.
Yeah.
It's great.
Solid joke.
I liked when you see the freak sign that says like "Welcome to Freakland,"
And it zooms copyright.
and it looks like an old rotting wooden sign you would see in a swamp, and then it zooms way in, and there's an elaborate copyright at the bottom. Yeah, "Freaks" with the Z spelling is the copyright of Elijah C. Scuggs, 1993. Yeah, and in the soundtrack at the same time, you hear jungle noises, lion roars, and then Woody Woodpecker and the Three Stooges going.
Like there's wild stooges out in there.
And the note I wrote when that part came up, because then it cuts to, it goes dun 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 dun, and it shows the Freakland for the first time. Abe's gonna get so mad at me. I genuinely typed, "I think this movie's better than Jurassic Park." At that part,
At showing the whole
when they drive through the jungle and come to the freak park, I was like,
it's
"This is better than flying
totally
into Jurassic
different.
Park."
I'm not mad. It's just totally you're just wrong because one's trying to one's a children's movie and this is just super airtight comedy.
So many. Oh yeah, that's true. Randy Quaid's probably my favorite as Elijah.
Oh Jesus, he kills that performance.
When he kidnaps them, it cuts to a Dutched external shot of the place where you know they're going to get mutated, and you hear evil, booming, maniacal laughter. And then it cuts inside, and he goes, "Ha ha, oh, I just love the family circus. I admit it, they make the same joke over and over, but I'm just a sucker for that Muppets shenanigans."
Also, the fact that anytime he's on the phone with like
Laughing Man?
whoever,
The
like
ES
the
guy.
ES guy, it's just you just hear him maniacally laughing, and it's
Yeah.
him responding to it. Oh, okay. I have another joke that I thought was very funny, which is when they're going to steal the antidote, right? Or not the antidote, but they're going to steal and make I don't exactly remember the logic.
Real quick, because it's so easy. Elijah C. Scuggs is planning to turn Ricky into a new level of ultimate freak that's
Which is like
evil.
8 feet tall and
mind
will murder
controlled
people.
and murders all
Right.
the other people for him. They decide to break in and change the formula so that it'll turn him into the freak still, but he'll retain his mind. And their logic is, now when he does it, you'll become good and you'll save us.
So they're sneaking into the lab to get it, and they're like all 12 of them, trying to do this, and they knock a styrofoam cup off of the counter, and then it hits the floor, and then Scuggs is in his living room watching TV, and he turns his head and he goes, "A styrofoam cup."
That's what, before
It's
taping,
solid.
I was telling Abe, I think my favorite beat in the movie is those 3 lines from Randy Quaid that are all like under 2 words, and every line is a punchline, and they're so good. And the first one is styrofoam cup, because before then, they've been making siren noises,
Yeah.
but he happened to turn on a cop show, so he doesn't notice it's weird.
Right.
And like someone makes a chainsaw go, but there's a sound that obscures it, and then they do, and he goes, "Styrofoam cup." Then they're like racing against time to get the sludge out of the machine, and the doorknob does that thing in movies where it starts to turn,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, it's turning slowly, they better rush." And it cuts outside, and you see that he can't turn the knob because he was eating popcorn. He goes, "Damn, butter." Wipes his hands off, comes in the door. Of course, they get away just in time. He sees the cup, and he walks up to it and picks it up and looks at it in a beat that I interpret as, this is a clue. Like now he's going to say,
Right.
"I know the freaks have been here."
Right.
But instead, he just crushes it and says, bad for the
environment.
environment.
You know what's funny is I watched this last night and I just was like, after it finished, I was like, well, that was a fucking thing that I watched. I very much had that. But now that we're talking about it, I was like, no, you know what? I think once I got past the, like, there's some jokes and things that are very, like, 90s and, like, not really great now. Like, the whole the gross misogyny,
Ride my
oogie boogie, like,
Rodney.
it's just...
The
it was
hand
like,
coming
bleh.
out of the zipper is fucking stupid.
And
Yeah.
that was like literally the first frames
And it's
of
the
that.
start of the movie, especially. So you were going like, "Why?"
It put me in like I'm gotta watch this whole thing. But now that we're like going into joke structure, I'm like, yeah, you know what? It was a joke dense movie.
And I think in retrospect, and maybe I'm just defending my movie because I like it so much, but I do think, not that I also think Ernie sucks. I'm like, and the actor actually is pretty charming, but I'm like, Ernie's lines suck. They're really basic,
Yeah.
stock, shitty guy, best friend character.
Right.
He's wearing like a fishing cap and Red Hot Chili Peppers shirt, and then a plaid vest with the
Yeah.
sleeves ripped off. You're like, 90s, my man.
That's what it is.
But I do think the idea that his fate is to be fused to
With
a
a
feminist,
feminist,
and
right.
then by the end they respect each other, makes you at least see like, oh, I see what they were doing.
That's
with
why
him.
he was so.
That's why he was
far
over the
in
top,
one direction,
right.
And she was so far in the other direction.
But you're right. As a result, before they do anything with him, you're just like, this guy fucking sucks. Why is he Ricky's friend?
I literally went like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue watching this.
sorry.
No, it's fine. But then once it got going and he got fused, because they get fused pretty much
Pretty
the
quick.
moment they get to the freak
Right.
show.
Tiger out 24. You're not supposed to have that stuff. Well, I guess I'm not supposed to have these either. Holds up Hyatt hotel towels.
Or Ramada Inn.
Ramada Inn.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But yeah, once I got into it, I was like, okay, that it's not... I know what I'm experiencing now.
Yeah.
Like, I know...
What'd you guys think of the excessive puke scene? Because there's a lot of excessive puke scenes in comedy, and I think it ranks with them.
I think it's funny where he's obviously, because it's the two of them,
Yeah.
and they both want to puke, he's puking for the both of them, and then there's a point where she's like, I can't, and then they both start throwing up, and you're like, oh, that's funny. It's not that she was less, like, affected than he was. It was
Yeah.
just that he
She's
was having the
nicer.
physical reaction because they're conjoined.
And
Yeah.
then as they're both puking, he's like, you know, you're no better roses yourself. And then he says to himself, I wonder if Gremlins 3 is still casting.
Oh, God. But
90s joke.
But that's the thing, too, is, like, it reminded me of A Way for Thin Mint in Monty Python. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Like, the
It is.
hose of just, like, spraying
That's what
it.
I like about it. Whoever was doing the vomit
Right.
hose, the director was like, turn the force up to unrealistic.
Yeah, just, like, like, fire hose of puke.
And that's while they're playing, Hollywood Squares. He introduces all the freaks, and it's shot like horror shots and punk music. And then Ricky freaks out and goes, No, this is impossible. This is nuts. It's crazy. Besides, it was Linda Blair. And he's like, that's correct. Circle gets the square.
Also, Paul Lynde is a skeleton.
Oh, yeah, he goes, and
the
of
center
course,
square.
in the center square, Paul Lynde is a
He's a
skeleton
skeleton.
now. And then I like, Ernie ends up going, call me old-fashioned, but I want to go with Paul Lynde. And she immediately just
He's
smacks
like-
him in the
like,
face.
What? Why would you do that?
Oh, man. I was down with all the practical effects. The only thing that actually kind of took me out of it was Alex Winter's. So half of his face is like the gremlin, and half of his face is his face, and neither mouth
Moves enough.
moves enough.
Yeah.
Where the majority of his dialogue was ADR,
Yeah.
because they didn't figure out a
can't-
way to make the lips
yeah.
move with his lips, and so that like was a little.
It's a really beautiful sculpture.
Right, but
it's
it's
not
just-
animatronic at all.
It's just
Yeah.
stuck on the side of his face.
That's
And
true.
also super impressive because that Winter says about this movie that the drool and the spit coming from his
Is
mouth
real.
is real.
Yeah, because he couldn't close his mouth.
Because his mouth is just fused
Yeah,
open.
so anytime he's drooling, he's just
which is
fine.
often in many shots.
Yeah.
Also, but practical effect is just like the green ooze that just comes out of so gross.
Like the pimples or
Yeah.
whatever. He's got one on his
just
forehead,
holes.
one on
He's
his
just got
hands.
holes in his head.
I
It
love
was so bad.
that it's like
Well done.
Alex Winter got off of Bill and Ted and Bill and Ted 2, and he made his passion project, and it's kind of a movie about like, I hope as my fame continues to increase and I become super famous, I don't become this horrible rich douchebag. But he didn't have to worry because he was never going to become that famous.
Oh, God.
This is like the line for him. And I think,
Right.
man, Alex Winter deserved a better career based on Freaked alone, in my opinion.
Well, that is an interesting thing to not be timid in your career, like literally to take a risk that huge because it was his writing, his directing, and he was starring in it. Like when you're, I'm sure most actors, when you come off of a huge film like Bill and Ted, like, and that's your first big thing, you're gonna want to take roles or do things that are gonna continue that. But he was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna make this crazy
My
movie."
sophomore
Yeah.
thing.
Which makes me like respect. I do respect him.
Even though it did kind of hurt, like
It flopped hard.
It flopped
Yeah.
hard.
But
so.
this is going to bring it back, and now it'll be an 8-part series on Netflix next year.
that
thanks
would be
to this
wonderful.
Podcast.
Hell yeah.
I take that. Wet Hot American Summer style. Yeah. Peppering him in when he walks up and he's just become a freak. Worm comes up to him and he goes, "You look sad. What's wrong, Ricky?" He goes, "Oh, I don't know. Take a wild guess." And Worm goes, "Ah, I know. You see, I too had an eating disorder."
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, that joke. I was like, God damn it.
God damn it.
I mean, it's a well written joke, but I was like, oh.
You know
come
who
on
else? Who also kills it in this movie is William Sadler, who plays Dick Bryan, who's the like the head of
Yeah.
Yes, who also then played in Bill and
Bogus
Ted 2
Journey. Yeah.
as Death.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the same guy.
And he's just so good at like creepy ass smiles.
His smile in this is amazing. I laugh multiple times just from the fact that he finishes his line and then smiles as quickly as humanly possible.
Right.
Like his face just always reverts to shit-eating grin.
yeah.
Larry Bud Melman, the real life inspiration for Hans Moleman, is in this film. He's
Is he the
that
guy
goes,
with the sign?
No, although I love that joke.
That's a good joke.
There's constantly a confused guy with a sign that says "I like Ike" in every picket or riot scene.
Right.
And he eventually gets skewered by it. No, he's the old guy with the camera going, "What's wrong? You not ready for a little rough stuff, you putsies?"
Yeah.
He doesn't even have a microphone. He just says, "Quiet, please," and everyone immediately just sits down, like, and listens and
Were you
obeys.
gonna say what goes right after that?
No.
Because
yeah.
he goes, "This show is so disturbing. I'm going to have to ask more sensitive members of the audience to leave now." And just two sensitive people stand up and look at each other and go like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Just walk outside.
They don't even talk. They just go.
They're wearing khakis and pastel
Yeah, sweaters
polo
knotted at the
shirts.
neck.
Yeah.
Right.
The joke, that was another joke that I was like, oh, fucking gross, but it was funny, was petting zoo and then heavy petting zoo, and it's just a man on a couch making out with a goat.
And again, the goat is an impressive animatronic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely.
They get some mileage out of that later when Ricky goes nuts on all the EES guys, and they cut to everyone's reaction, including like normal people being horrified, a nun because they've established that a nun is there, the I like Ike guy, and then they just cut to
Looking on the couch. They're both just looking.
they cut to the goat and the guy making out with the goat, turning their heads to see what's going on. Yeah.
It's so good.
I
Which
love-
means that
yeah.
man has come back multiple times to make out with that goat.
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah,
like
it's
a
multiple
couple
shoots.
shows later.
I love the first time he tries to escape the shack. He just investigates the perimeter and finds a thing labeled fire exit, and he jiggles it, and it's locked, and he goes, "That's against the law." Like, after they've all been kidnapped and chained up, he's shocked.
You can't lock a fire exit.
Then later they play Wheel of Fortune, and the whole scene you're trying to guess what the answer is because it seems like a bunch of random letters. And you forget about it because it's a long scene where he fights with his besties, and at the end he goes, "I'm out of here, you crud sucking pus monkeys, and then the board turns green, and that was the answer. It was crud sucking pus monkeys.
Oh my god.
It's just a not real phrase.
So much in this movie. Like,
So much.
So joke dense.
And we haven't even like ruined it for you. So I still think people should watch it. We'll mostly cover favorites like WALL-E and Saving Private Ryan, but we covered High Tension. We like to cover movies that were like, we know no one's seen this. You should give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those. Oh, my plan was to train sea monkeys to fire guns, but your guys' plan is much better.
Yeah, where they all are just like,
That's a
he's
great
like
plan.
wanting to say his plan, and everybody, essentially all of the freaks are like interjecting with like, oh, you mean like this and this and this, and then they formulate the plan. They were like, great plan. What was your plan?
Yeah.
Sea monkeys.
And as you were saying, the ES guy gives the presentation who's like, no, Elijah, we're going to take this machine and infect the entire world. Why genetically engineer? We could engineer a master race that we own the copyright on. And that's the final boot falling of like, that's the stakes of this movie. And Elijah leans over and goes like, he's good. And the guy goes, yeah, I know. We got him from Pepsi. After he's just been talking about like the master race and genetic
we got him
engineering.
from...
What's his name? The guy who's the head of ES who played Death?
William Sadler.
William Sadler.
Or Dick Bryan is
I think it's Dick
character.
Bryan. Okay. The Laughing Man is the easiest way for me to remember it. The Laughing Man, there's this whole presentation where the vibe is one of those scenes where upper corporate people are going to do something horrible, but they treat it not horrible because they're all smiling and they're going like, why not make a worker with no butthole and 6 arms so you have perfect workers? And it cuts to workers who are just happen to be there being like scared. And then it ends and everyone like smiles and shakes hands like it's a business meeting. And then William Sadler goes, thanks, this has been great. And Bill, if I could just add one thing, those that oppose us will stand knee deep in the blood of their children.
Can I say one thing?
Nosy, I never really liked you. Suck my dick. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
At one point at the end when the guy Nosy comes out on the talk show, like just everybody, including old women, just give him the finger. The whole audience are just like fucking
so much.
And he's so cheerful.
I
He
know,
comes
he's
out
like
breakdancing.
excited.
I just love when Elijah realizes he's been double crossed by ES. He breaks a little thing that says break glass. He says, you double crossing corporate greaseballs. And it says break glass in case of double crossing corporate greaseballs. And then I gotta say, as a kid, this did stick with me. And I was like, the claymation still stands as I think one of the best, because not all the claymation in this is great. And we recently covered Beetlejuice, where the sandworm claymation does not hold up.
Yeah.
And like that shoe, the everything except shoes people, fittingly,
They
get
get-
all molded into a giant shoe. And I find that shoe haunting and disturbing.
It's very scary. It's got a tongue, like an actual tongue.
And you hear their like wails, like the bear from Annihilation. They're like trapped in the shoe.
Yeah, it undulates like the surface of the shoe. Yeah, it is very, very. That's a great joke. It's everything except shoes, and then they become.
We won't spoil it because it's so like I don't know. The ending is so delightful.
Yeah.
It is. We don't. Have
But
to
we
say
did
that,
say that like by the end, everyone's like turned to normal
most
a few
everyone.
times.
There's some surprises.
I love that joke about the worm because they
macaroons.
Yeah, he's just like just because a man doesn't like macaroons.
Yeah.
So he even though he doesn't like macaroons, he hates them so much that he won't turn back into a human.
Right, by eating one, yeah. Ugh. And like all great films of the era, over credits is a rap that recaps the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's funny is I did not watch I literally was like,
Out.
I have to go to bed now. Like
Yeah,
I was like, I need
sure.
to unwind. That was a lot to absorb right before I go to bed.
And it's only like an hour 27.
20. Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, not a long movie.
Not a long movie at all.
So go watch it right now.
But it is effective. The plot, like, it's very, like, quickly paced. Not in a way where you feel like it's just...
It takes its
Yeah,
hurries.
like, yeah, you...
It takes its time in a hurry.
It
Yeah.
takes
we
its
used to
time.
say,
Yeah.
All right. It's against the law. Yeah, there's so many jokes that I don't want to ruin that I want to stop there. Thank you guys for watching my favorite comedy movie.
Thank you for exposing me to its craziness.
To this crazy thing.
It's insane.
Where are you at online, Katie?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at KA_Willert. That's KAWILLERT.
Nice. You got an Instagram account between our last recording session and this one.
Yeah, I learned to plug my social media, and those are the only two that I really participate in, I guess.
Well, thanks for being here. This has been Frame Rate, the show where we rate frames.
Yay!
Bye, all.